Listen to the vibes.
The views and opinions of our guests may not necessarily reflect those of the host or the Vibes Broadcast Network. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes, and I'm very happy to have Keenan here with me today. We're going to learn about him and hopefully get some inspiration and talk about what he does and his company. So, Keenan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Man, that's a broad question. Broad question. I don't know what to say. I'm sitting here on the beach in Hermosa, overlooking the water, people walking by on the boardwalk or the strand. So I live a good life, that's for darn sure. And then in the winter, I live in Vail and I ski Vail and Aspen and Telluride. And so I just live a good life. That's who I am. A dude who's been able to build a good life for himself.
So tell me about your company. Like what exactly do y'all do?
So a sales growth company is a sales consulting and training firm that offers business to business sales organizations the ability to, we help improve their sales team. So basically, man, I don't know who your audience is, but big companies have sales teams, Microsoft, GE, or, your local Salesforce. Like companies have business to business sales teams, and those sales teams have to go out and sell stuff. And if they're not performing well, that's not good because salespeople bring in the revenue. And so sometimes they're not doing well. They don't know why. So they want to either train the sales team or they want to bring someone in to help them figure out why things aren't working well. And that's what my company does. People hire us to go fix their sales teams.
And y'all haven't been around very long though, right?
No, we're 11 years old.
Oh, 11 years old. Okay.
I don't know. Depends on who you are, if that's a long time or not.
No, I was under the impression that y'all had just kicked off a few years ago, but 11 years. Wow. So what made you decide to get into this?
So, I'm an opportunist, and people who know me will tell you that, I'm always trying to figure out how to solve problems or get stuff done. And so my career went really fast when I was younger. So I didn't start my career until I was 27. There's a lesson for most of you. You're a young kid. Don't even start thinking about your career at 21, 20. Matter of fact, my daughter literally just sent me a text out of the clear blue that said, "Dad, I'm nervous. I don't know what I wanted." What did she say? I'm going to tell you exactly what she said. Hold on. I'm going to tell you exactly what she said because this is germane to this conversation. Where is she? She said, "Dad, I don't know. Do you know what I'm thinking? I have no clue what I want to do in life yet. What I want to go to college for, anything. I'm so scared because I feel like I should know at least something by now." She's 16. She's 16 years old, and she's literally sending me this note that says she's scared, that she doesn't know what she wants to do, or she has no idea. She feels she's late. 16. People, stop. I literally told her, I said back, I said, "No, you shouldn't know what you should do right now." I said, "You have all the time in the world. Relax, have fun, live life, and just do things that you enjoy." She's 16. So my point is, I didn't start my career till I was 27. But when I started my career, I took off like a shot. And so it went really, really fast. And so I went from selling a membership for this local chamber of commerce at $700 a pop to running a Fortune 1,000 company with $350 million of revenue under my belt and leading a team of 150 people in 3 years. I just went off like a shot. So I remember I left that company to get another job, and no one believed my resume. Like literally, they didn't believe me. They said, "You didn't do this in 3 years. You're only 30 years old." Like they didn't believe it. And it was before LinkedIn, and it was before all that shit. So it was really hard for me to get another job unless I did it through my network. And I didn't like that feeling. So in 2009, I said, "Look, I'm tired of trying to convince people through my resume that I know what I'm doing." So I started a blog. And I started blogging every single day, and I blogged about how to run sales teams, how to run sales organizations, how to build comp plans. Like I just basically blogged about the world of leading sales from a VP of sales and sales executive perspective. And I did that every day for 2 years, 712 blog posts. And then all of a sudden people started taking notice, and my audience grew from, a couple hundred to a couple thousand to tens of thousands to 20,000 people a month. And so from that, people started reaching out and saying, "Hey, can you help us? Can you help us?" And so from there, I decided to I left my company and I said, okay, I can go find another job, take 6 months to find another job. Or I take 6 months to see if I can build this consulting company. And that was in March of 2011.
Wow.
And so I said, fuck it. I'm going to go start my own company. I bet I can make more money in 6 months than I can trying to go find a job, work for some ass hat again. And then I never look back.
Wow. I don't know if I'd have had the guts to do that. So how do you inspire others to do that?
Self-confidence, man. Too many people operate from fear. Like I did this video a long time ago. Some that's funny. My ideas I don't think are very big blow up, and the ideas I think are huge don't. And I think my big ideas are too much for people, and my little ideas like, oh, I like that. So I have been saying this forever. I did a video not too long, well, I guess it was a while ago, and I posed this question: do you work for yourself, my man, or do you work for someone else?
For me, I work for myself.
Okay, so you're an entrepreneur, so you get it, right? You're not afraid, like you went and did it. But I posed this question to most people. I said, take your job right now. I don't care what it is. And I said, if they cut your salary to zero and then paid you only on results, but would pay you twice as much, would you take it? So if you make $100,000 now and you get paid no matter what, or if they cut it and let's say you were, I don't know, an ice cream scooper, or I don't give a shit, ditch digger, I don't care what it is, but you have to deliver on the goals that you have. And if you deliver on those goals, they'll pay you twice as much. Would you take the job? And most people wouldn't take the job.
Really?
Because, yeah, most people won't because they're like, well, what if I don't make it? What if this? What if that? I got it right. People won't bet on themselves because the truth of the matter is people don't believe in themselves or know deep down inside they're in some stupid ass job. They don't like that very, very much. So they just fucking go in to punch a time clock, get the fuck out. So they know damn right well they're not doing well at it. And they just want their money. They want like clockwork. Oh, Friday, here it is. Here's my pay. I'm going home. They don't want to actually bet on themselves. They know they're not that good. They know they're not putting in all the effort. And the minute that they'd have to bet their entire self on getting paid. They're like, I'm not doing that. They won't bet on themselves. They lack the self-confidence and they lack the sense of ownership for their job as long as someone's paying them and they know what's coming in.
Yeah,
So I don't know how to make people do that. Like you have to want to do that.
that's the thing. When I was supervisor, I'd get people come in and they would just do the bare minimum. Didn't want to take any extra effort. And then they wanted to know why somebody else would get a promotion over them, even though they've been there longer.
Yep.
Yeah. I made supervisor because I had the license. I worked for the water department, so I had a water license. I went and learned how to run all the equipment. You got guys, they just show up. You have to tell them what to do when you get to a job. You ought to know what to do when you get to the job. You ought to know, okay, well, we're working on this water leak. You need to have your tools. You need to have the, whatever the sleeves that we need to put on the pipe or whatever.
Yep.
You need to have it right there. And of course, the pump and everything. Instead, I'd have to say, hey, you go get the water pump. You go get the clamp. You go get the tools. And, I need you to find where the leak's at and that kind of thing. It's ridiculous.
Yep. 100% ridiculous.
And so I made it because I did that stuff. I got to the job. I knew what we needed to do and I had everything ready to go. I didn't wait for anybody to ask me.
There you go.
So how do you motivate people to get out of that mindset?
Yeah, they have to motivate themselves. Like you can't. You can look, motivation is like a drug. You know what I'm saying? Motivation is like a drug. You go watch a movie, you listen to someone get you all jazzed up, and then it wears off and you're right back to where you are. Right. So at the end of the day, you have to figure out how to take ownership, not motivation, ownership for your choices and your outcomes. It's that simple in the positive and the negative. Like, I want this outcome, so I have to take ownership for the choices I make, and do they or do they not get me to that outcome? And it can be a journey. It doesn't have to be overnight. Everybody wants shit to be overnight. It doesn't have to be overnight. But the question is, this is what I want for an outcome. Am I making the right choices to get me there? Am I doing the right things? If not, what do I need to do to change? Where am I falling down? What do I need to learn? And you got to look inside. And most people don't. They look outside. No one's giving me this. I don't have that. I can't get into this. So-and-so is not helping me here. To me, those are all problems to be solved.
Yeah. Well, you see how the mindset of most of the younger generation is. They think everything's supposed to be handed to them. Why does an 11-year-old need the cell phone? Why do they need to have every video game under the sun and TV for their room and all that stuff? My first stereo I worked for.
Yeah. So I agree with you, but think about this. I don't blame the kids.
It's parents.
Yes, it's the parents. Like nothing makes me madder when I hear all these people running around saying everybody gets a trophy. What's wrong with kids these days? I'm like, did you really just fucking say that? Last time I fucking checked, the kids weren't yelling at the coach or going to the sports committee saying, how come we're all not getting trophies? The kids didn't do any of this.
That's true.
See, this is the funniest part. To my point about getting real and looking in the fucking mirror, it's only adults running around saying kids are getting all the trophies. The kids had nothing to do with that. It was the adults who made that happen, and yet they're blaming the kids. That fucking blows my mind. When you got your first stereo system, you wanted a stereo system. Just like my kids want a cell phone, just like my kids want all the video games. So the kids are no different. It's your parents just either said no or we can't afford it. It wasn't you weren't different when you were a kid than the kids now. It's the parents are different. The parents are giving it to them. So don't blame the kids, blame the adults.
You're right on about that. My parents, they told me if I wanted it, I needed to work for it.
Thank you very much.
And so I did. And I tried to instill that into my kids. I mean, of course, I tried to give them more than what I had growing up, but
in lies the problem. We all kept doing that generation after generation because, like, how old are you?
I'm 52.
Okay, so we're about the same age. I'm 54, right? So our parents grew up in the 50s, right? And then their parents grew up in the 20s. So, like, your parents wanted to give you more than they had, and in many cases, they just didn't want to beat you. Right. Like our parents got beat. So when they grew up, their I've given you more was just not beating you. You know what I'm saying? And they bought you a few things. And then you grew up saying, I want to give my kids something more than I had. So instead of just buying them just a stereo system, we're telling them or buying something you wanted to buy them more. And now our kids are going to want to give them more than what they had. It's just this snowball effect is really what's going on.
True.
Right?
Well, I will say the difference is that when I had chores to do, I didn't get paid for the chores. I actually paid my kids for doing chores.
Okay, there's another good example. If you wanted to make it better, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong, by the way. I just want people to understand the progression. Like I as your daughter will tell you, I'm a thinker, so I don't handle statements very well. I try to understand what's behind the statement, right? So I'm not saying that you paying your kids, because I pay my kids for, well, I do a different thing for chores, but I give my kids ways to make money. Just because our parents did or didn't do that doesn't make us right or them right. It's just different. And before that, your parents didn't have chores. They had work days. You know what I'm saying? Like we had chores, like take out the fucking trash and mow the lawn. A lot of our parents, it was like, no, man, you can't do it until you're done milking the fucking cows or until you baled all the hay. Like, you know what I'm saying?
That's true.
The goddamn house. So, I mean, so it just changes over time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I see that the things that I tried to instill in my kids seems to have paid off. My oldest daughter, she's about to turn 30 this week. Give her a little props there. She's moved up at the bank that she's working at. She's into management now. I have a son that he went and he got his license to do what they call it, esthetician stuff, where they do all the skincare.
Yeah.
My youngest son, he went out and he got a degree, so he's a nurse, and he's fixing to get a higher degree so he can be the head nurse. I don't forget what they call it.
Yeah.
They did a lot better than their dad did, I can tell you that. I just like to see more kids get motivated like that. Now, I have talked to some people that work in, like they go around to colleges and they see how campus life is and they have a show about it, that kind of thing. And they're seeing a lot of the younger ones that are just now getting into college are actually motivated to do better. So I have a little bit more faith that things are going to get better. Unfortunately, we have that gap in between where they're the, everybody gets a trophy kind of thing. You know what I mean? So,
well, think about this though, too, right? Like, again, I just think it's how these poor millennials were what's the word I'm looking for? promoted or lack of promoted, right? Because think about what our grandparents said about our parents. They were freaked out because a whole portion of our parents were hippies. They were weed smoking, sexual revolution, going against the man, hippies, right? And now this whole group of baby boomers, who everybody said was going to destroy the world, is now actually destroying the world for different reasons. But they stopped smoking weed and they stopped being sex loving, and they grew up to these obnoxious, self-righteous people who raised the kids everybody's complaining about, right? So I just think this idea of adults looking at kids and saying, I'm scared for the future, et cetera, and kids don't want to work, I just think it's a cycle. And I think as adults, we lose sight of what it's like to be a kid, because I can tell you, you ask your grandparents, if they're still alive, what that generation thought of baby boomers in the 1960s when they're in their mid-20s, what they thought the world was going to be like. And because think about this, this is a group of parents who came from the 50s when literally women wore aprons in the fucking house to cook dinner, and, almost looked like they had uniforms on, right? And the men came home and put the paper up, and everybody talked about Jesus and God, and the world was segregated. And they had this whole, think about that persona, Elvis, that was their world, our grandparents' world. And then all of a sudden in the late 60s, we're talking smoking weed, bare feet, long hair, women not wearing bras, rock and roll music. Just think what they were thinking at that time, right?
Right.
And they thought the world was going to come to an end. So I just put that out there to people listening. It's about perspective. And I don't think our millennials are any more jacked or weird than hippies or the people were then to that generation. We just, as older people, are doing what our grandparents did, and we're I think we're overreacting.
That gives me something to think on. Now, when you help businesses, I guess my thing is do you help any kind of business, or does it have to be a certain size business? And what exactly what do you head on to when you first get there, or when you first help?
It has to be businesses that sell to other businesses. So it's called B2B. So we don't sell, generally speaking, we don't work with companies who sell products to other people. That's more marketing and, but we'll work with companies. So it could be like an Oracle or a Microsoft or a General Electric now, or GE, I should say. So GE is actual client, but I'm naming companies everybody else has heard of. So if you have a company that sells software or sells services or sells anything to another company, right? So here's a good example. That microphone you have in front of you, they sell those microphones. Well, somebody sold that company their HR services or their HR software. Someone sold that company their accounting software. Someone sold that company the warehousing, shelving. Do you see what I'm saying? So the people that sold that company their stuff has sales teams. We work with those companies to make sure their sales teams are as running effectively, as efficiently, and as well as they possibly can to maximize revenue. So those companies will call us in and say, hey, sales team's not working, or we want to train them, or we want to get them better. I'm like, all right, we can help you.
Okay. Well, I wish that you could come in and help me. I would love to get more off the ground what I do, but unfortunately, I don't sell to anybody.
Yeah, well, but you do. You do. That's the first thing you got to understand. You sell to somebody, whether you recognize it or not. So you tell Paige to give you a copy of the book, and I think she has some copies. And you start there, read the book.
Oh, okay. I could do that for sure.
Yeah, you just tell her to give you one.
So what's the biggest company that you've ever helped out?
Either Intel or Verizon.
Oh, really?
I don't know which one's bigger. Well, GE might be bigger than both of those. GE's a customer right now.
So how did it change their revenue? What's the percentage?
So I don't, it's a great question. I was literally on the phone with one of them yesterday. I don't know the actual percentage. What I can tell you is that I worked with their life sciences division. So the whole company is too big. Like, you don't work with the whole company. So the last group of the company we worked with was their life sciences, imaging, CAT scan, their healthcare division in Australia and New Zealand. And we've increased their revenue. We've increased their average sales time. So at the time it takes when we talk to someone to actually buy. That's a great question. I need to reach out to them and see what the numbers are these days. Because we just finished up with them in January or February. So you usually have time for them to do the work to start to see the changes. You know what I'm saying? It's like anything else. You do something, it takes a little while to see the output.
And when you're hiring someone, what are you looking for in an employee?
I personally look for, as you can imagine, attitude, drive, critical thinking skills. I want someone who can actually think on their own. Like you were saying earlier, these guys come in and like, what do? I have no patience for that. If I have to tell you what to do, I might as well just do it myself. Curiosity in my business, your ability to be curious and ask questions and learn quickly is important. Another one I call is deliberate learning. I look for people who actually want to learn, so they don't just sit and let things go by. They actually say, I think I want to learn this. I want to grow here. So personal development and growth and deliberate learning are important. So I hire mostly on what people call soft skills. I try to find the best person, and I can teach them the other stuff, but I can't teach drive. I can't teach critical thinking. I can't teach personal growth. I can't teach learning. People either want to do that or they don't.
So are you like steadily growing yourself to where you're hiring more people now?
Oh yeah, we're hiring right now.
Oh, sweet. So if someone wanted to give you a call, and what do you have, like a website or?
Yeah, best thing to do is just have them reach out to your daughter. She'll know where to steer them. Just have them reach out to Paige. She knows exactly where to send them.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's going to be somebody watching this that say, you know what, I could
go to
probably
sales.
do that.
Go to salesgrowth.com.
Salesgrowth.com. Wow. I'm sure there's probably somebody out there that's looking to change their life, and they have the drive, but they're just not in the right job. Yeah. The problem for me was I let life kind of take over, and I was so scared to try anything that whatever job I was in, that's where I was going to stay. Now, if something better came up, I'd move. But my dad told me, if you don't go to college, you're going to be a ditch digger. Well, I worked for the city, and I worked on water lines and sewer lines, so I was a ditch digger. And I went from city to city until I finally found the one that was more of a fit for me. But you get comfortable, and you didn't, especially when you've got kids in school, I guess you take less chances.
The real question is why you didn't listen to your dad.
Didn't get along with my dad, so.
Okay, but so do you have to like who you get the advice from?
No, you don't.
See, that goes back to what I was telling you, I think, before the call. Too many of us get caught up in the wrong things.
That's true.
I remember in the very beginning of the call, I said it's choices. It's choices for you. It's accountability for your choices, and it's accountability for the outcomes. And nobody can change that. Like, I don't care if you're religious or not religious. I don't care like if you're left leaning or right leaning. The bottom line is nobody can make you choose but you.
That's right.
And so if you don't get tuned in to, is this the choice I want to make? And is this the outcome I want to achieve? If you are not conscious of that, then you said it so perfectly, Kyle. Life will take you. And what happens when life takes you is one of two things happen. You either see it happen, oh shit, and stop it, or you blame life.
No, I can't blame anybody but me.
But for a while you do, like, because if you didn't want to be doing that and you kept doing that, then you're blaming life. You're saying, you kind of said here, well, I was scared, I had the kids, or I needed money for this, or my boss won't let me do that. You keep saying, you focus on all the outside stuff, right? Of why you're not making the choice to do something different. Like, literally, that's what happens when life takes you. You begin blaming everything else, whether you recognize it or not. So when you say, I can't do something because, you're blaming that thing.
Well,
right?
It's really my fault. I know I tried to blame life, but it was my mistake as soon as I graduated high school, went and got married. So I'm 19 years old. Just, and then 2 years later, I have a kid, and then 2 more kids come along, and you've got bills to pay. And
but see, watch what you did right there. I want everybody, you said you want inspiration. You said you want this. Notice what you just said, right? By the way, I want to take something out. I don't try to judge them very often. I do my best. I'm not perfect, but I do my best. Don't judge your choices. just recognize when you say I made a bad choice or I made the wrong choice or whatever, like that's a judgment. I could say wrong choice isn't, but the bad choice, that's a judgment. Just acknowledge the choices. But you just said something. He said, and then two more came along. See, no, they didn't come along. Right? This is the piece that people need to understand, especially young people. If you want to live a certain life, you have to be fucking honest with yourself. You have to be honest with yourself. Though, and I'm not saying you weren't. I'm just using your words because other people.
Oh, no. I don't want a yes man. If I've done something wrong, I want somebody to tell me.
You didn't do anything wrong. I just want you to understand that when you say two kids came along, they did not came along. You chose to have two more. Now, if that was the wrong choice or you didn't make a good choice or you didn't really think about it and that in itself was the problem, that's fine. I'm okay with that, but just own it. Not you own it, but in the moment, own it and think, okay, this is how I got here. I had a kid without thinking about it. And when I had the kid, look, you had a choice to put up for adoption. I'm not saying you had to, but that's a choice.
I wouldn't have done that.
Okay. So then that's fine. But then you have to ask yourself, what's the result of that choice? Right. So I'll be perfectly frank because I found it when I was 18, I got in trouble in high school and we had a kid and we put up for adoption. That was a choice. I got the letter from the adoption agency that said, hey, yo, you got a kid down here. The mom said you're the father. She's put up for adoption. You either got to come get it or you got to come sign the papers. And that's not hyperbole. Like literally come get it. Not like come show us and prove that you can take care of it. Come show us you've got a home for it. Like show up and come get this kid. This is 1987. So I literally could have walked in there and said, hey, here I am. Here's my license. Okay, there you go. Have a great day. And walked out with a freaking kid in my hand. But I was like, hey, like I knew I wasn't in a position to take care of it. So I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Now watch what I do here. Choices. I put up for adoption. And then I write a letter to the adoption agency asking if I can communicate with the parents indirectly. Don't need to know my name or anything, but just I can send letters so the girl knows she wasn't abandoned, what her story was, who I am. And those parents said yes, so that there was no risk of impropriety or whatever. So I sent a letter every single year for like 18 years to this agency, who then sent it to the parents. And after a while, they started sending them back to me. And then when she was 18, she reached out, can I meet you? Yes. And so now, she has her own parents, but I'm in her life. So my point is choices, fucking choices. That couldn't have turned out any better for any of us, but it was all conscious. It wasn't just, okay, I'll just do this. It's choices, dog. It's choices.
Oh, yeah. Well, when I went to work for the city, I made that choice to stay because there was stability there for one, and the retirement. I mean, 2 for 1, you can't hardly beat that.
Okay.
Like a lot of benefits, especially when I started having health problems.
Mm-hmm.
The insurance definitely came in handy. And I was just too afraid that I was going to lose it all if I tried something new. And now I look back and think, why didn't I take the chances? Yeah.
Yeah. So fear, you said it yourself several times.
Mm-hmm.
Fear.
Exactly.
Literally said it yourself, fear. Mm-hmm.
That's the main thing. And just like the Bible says, fear not. But yet we let fear rule our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows what I could have been. Now, I will say I'm in a better position to try something new.
And you're young enough to do it, though. You're only 52, so you absolutely can still do it.
Yeah. Well, and I am doing it with the podcast. This is my job. And it doesn't feel like a job.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like I'm meeting all kinds of cool people and having great conversations, helping other people out. That's like the ultimate for me. It's something I never dreamed of. And yet it developed into a dream.
So what is the outcome? So what do you want from this? Do you want to be able to make a living on it, or you just want to meet new people? Like how are you going to measure success of this podcast?
Okay. I will say the whole reason why I started this, and I still stand firmly, is that I want to help others.
Okay. How are you defining help others?
Even if I never know that I did, if somebody out there is inspired enough to go take a chance, become successful, whether it's in business or, even their health or whatever,
mm-hmm.
if it's to get over anxiety, depression, those kinds of things, I've helped at least at least one person, which I know I should be able to help more than that, then that's success for me. Now, yes, I do want to make a living on it. I mean, I'm disabled, so I'm living on government help, but I didn't want that to be my career choice. I want to be able to make my own money.
Okay.
So
what have you done to figure out how you make money on a podcast?
well, there's the promotions with the, getting money through YouTube. I got my subscribers up. I've got my 4,000 hours that I needed. Still working on that. I have someone who's helping me to get it better promoted on Google.
Okay.
There's, and I've reached out to people to try to get help with it that knows more about the business, but for some reason they don't want to help. Now, I've watched the videos. Maybe I just haven't gotten to the right video yet.
Okay.
But I haven't heard that thing that I could do different.
Okay. So I think the key here is to keep learning, right? Like,
oh yeah, definitely.
Be more deliberate in how you're going about this, right? So I think one of the things you should do is sit down and define what is a really, really, really good podcast look like? Not just a podcast, but what makes a great one, right? So maybe you go do a bunch of research and find out what makes a great one and what are the things you're doing now that makes a great one versus things you're not doing, right? Yeah. You might want to find out the best way to try to get sponsors, what a sponsors looks for, right? How do you target your markets? How do you differentiate yourself? Like, because podcasts are a very crowded market right now.
Oh yeah.
Very, very crowded market. So you have to make money on it, you're going to have to do a lot more and achieve more outcomes. But how much work have you done to figure out what that looks like and what you need to do and how long it takes, et cetera, right? So again, it's starting the podcast is the easy part.
Oh yeah.
Right?
That was the easy part.
Getting it to where you want to get it to, that's the hard part. And that takes constant, deliberate learning, critical thinking, and spending more time off air than on air working on the process. So look, I don't have a podcast that gets podcasts that makes millions of dollars, even tens of thousands of dollars. But I had a blog that I grew that was pretty damn big for a while. So I know what it takes, and it takes time and it takes learning. I was constantly evaluating each post I did, what posts do people respond to and what they don't, what topics are interesting, which aren't, etc. So it's iterate. So anyways, I'll stop.
Yeah. Well, I know networking has helped a lot.
Okay.
It's, I do need to find sponsors, but I also have to get my subscriptions up or my subscribers up a lot more than what they are. Working hard on it,
Okay.
I'm
So
learning every day.
Here's what I want you to do. What is going to make your podcast different?
If I strip naked on camera,
that would make it different. 100%. That would make it different.
Well, I mean, seriously, I know the most popular ones, they have more controversial stuff, pop culture news, that kind of thing. The niche that I try to get into, and I have people that I look at in the success that they have, they're still not as big as the ones that talk all the garbage, all the rumors and whatever garbage is going on. But that's not me. I can't do that. I have to stick to what I'm doing.
Okay. So notice you're struggling here. So this is my homework to you.
Okay.
You have to figure out what makes your podcast different. That's your job, because you won't be able to grow it to the size you want if people aren't saying you have to watch this and they're like, why? Oh, because it's different. Like when someone says, oh, you have to do this, that's basically code for this is different and I'm not used to seeing this and this is awesome. Right? Mm-hmm. That's how things like content works, is that it's perceived as different and brings value to the end user. So your objective to inspire is great, but there's probably got to be thousands of inspirational blogs a podcast. The question is, what makes Kyle Yates, what makes his podcast different? Why would I turn on your podcast as opposed to somebody else's podcast? And if you don't have that nailed, it's going to be difficult for you to get where you want to go.
Well, I could tell you what sets me apart when it comes to interviewing, say, an actor or a musician. I'll use Rudy Sarzo as an example. Okay, Rudy Sarzo, bass player, Quiet Riot, White Snake, Ozzy. Most people that are into that kind of music, they know who Rudy is. They know about, the songs he played on, the bands he was in, yada, yada, yada. When I go and I interview someone like that, I know all that stuff. I could turn on YouTube, put his name in there, and I could see 100 different videos on all that stuff. We ended up talking about how his family came here from Cuba and the struggles they went through to become American citizens. And I got that inspirational story from him where, even though we talked about music, we talk about stuff that he doesn't normally get to talk about. To me, that's how I feel like I'm different than other people.
Okay, so what's the name of the podcast?
This is Listen to the Vibes.
Okay, how would I know that Listen to the Vibes is about getting to the story behind the story?
My advertisement of it, I suppose.
What does your ad say?
It just depends on who I'm talking to. I try to put in the hashtags, of course, that are relevant to it, and I try to describe what we talk about.
Okay, so I didn't get that impression when you first came on and told me what you're going to ask me. You didn't really steer me in the direction of I want to get to the parts that no one knows or no one's talking about, or get to the story behind the story. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that might be a great angle for you to take, right? Is lean more heavily on that. Why do I listen to Kyle's podcast? Because I'm going to hear stories that I don't hear other places. I'm going to hear people talk about the hard part of success, or the ugly part of success, or the grind during success, not the outcomes and the platitudes and the, just work harder and it'll come to you, right? So maybe that's how you differentiate. And then from there, you should build questions, or at least have a framework of questions to drive your guests to those difficult places if they're not getting there on their own. So now you're making choices to make sure you get that out of every podcast. You see what I'm doing here?
Oh, yeah.
Because don't get me wrong, and I could be wrong because I'm not asking tons of questions, but just in our engagement alone, even your podcast is sort of like, I know what I want to do, but I'm letting outside forces sort of guide where it goes, as opposed to I'm going to be very deliberate in what I get out of this. This is the outcome I want. These are the people I want to be listening to it. This is how I'm going to get there. These are the way I'm going to make it happen. You know what I'm saying? Like control, taking more control.
I got you.
I like that concept, by the way. If you're good at getting people to talk, that's good.
Whenever I have someone, say like you, that you have a business, or say I have an author on, of course I want to talk about them, but in their book, I like to get a little bit more in depth into it, but I know that they're here to promote themselves or whatever their product is. Yeah, so I give that to them.
Viewers. Don't worry about them. Sorry, keep going.
No, I was saying that's just where, that's why I let the show go in that direction, because I'm here to promote you. So if
you're not. You're there. Be clear on this. Mm-hmm. And that means you can't get certain people on the show. So be it. You're not there to promote me. You're here to provide valuable, entertaining, inspiring content for your users. That's who you're here for. Not for me, not for the next author, not for the next band member, period. No, that is a default benefit for us doing this. Your job is to get the best content so that people want to listen to this. And then over time, I win, or your guests win, by simply having access to your audience. Your audience is the key. And without your audience, there's no value to me promoting my book or promoting whatever. Your audience may not even be in sales. So at the end of the day, there's no value to me at all other than helping out. But if you get to a place where you explain to people that this podcast is about getting the story behind the story, so what? So people realize that success doesn't happen overnight, or people realize that they're not alone, or the people they look up to have accomplished a bunch, were in the same shitty place they were and lived in a trailer park and had a mom that did drugs and a dad that left them, and they realized they were gay and couldn't get through high school, and they had all this shit, and all of a sudden they turned out and they made it, but no one knew any of that. You see what I'm saying? No one knew that story behind the story. So people can start saying, oh my God, I can do this too. I'm not alone. Oh my, like that's the value to your listeners.
Yeah. What I mean,
that's where your head needs to be.
So when you got into this, did you find this to be like an easy thing for you, or did you struggle? I mean, how was it for you?
So I didn't go in with it too. So I'm going to use my not my podcast, my blog, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have a podcast, but I started blogging in 2009, which is early for blogging. That's probably like getting into podcasting about 3 years ago, right?
Right.
I was one of the earlier people in blogging in 2009. And I didn't go into it to make a career. I was working for other companies and I had a job, but I went into it just to show people that I knew what I was talking about. So then I said, okay, well, I don't want them to know what I was talking about because I'm not trying to get them to give me anything. So I said, okay, what do sales leaders, sales people, sales managers want to know? What do they struggle with? What don't they like? What do they like? What are they being told that's wrong? So every time I wrote a post, I said, okay, how will this benefit a reader? What will they walk away from specifically? How can they use this to get better or change their mindset? So every post was written from the perspective of how does a reader going to enjoy this? What are they going to get from it? That's how I did it. And I just did one a day. And over time, people were like, hey, and then I did it in my own voice. And I was like, am I going to be boring? Am I going to be corporate? Whatever. And I said, everybody's corporate, especially back then. I was like, I'm going to write this in my voice, which means I would drop F-bombs. I would curse. I would use slang, lots of slang back then. So it was almost, it freaked people out because I'd be like, listen, this is what you need to do, right? I ain't got time for this bullshit, blah, blah. And yet the content was powerful. Like he knows what he's talking about, but you think he was from the hood. And so that in itself really fucked with people. You know what I'm saying? But they were like, so that created a difference. You weren't going to get that anywhere else in sales blogs. So you got to figure out what you're going to do to make your ability to get people to tell you that backstory and that deep story differently in a way they can't get anywhere else.
So your background with the way you talk, where did you pick that up from?
I was born in Massachusetts. Well, I was born in St. Louis, but I grew up in Massachusetts. I mean, outside of that, I don't know. Just growing up.
The guys you hung out with.
Yeah. Look, don't get me wrong. If I met the Queen tomorrow, you know what I'm saying? I could sit and not curse and not use slang and have an extremely articulate, well thought out conversation where she probably thought I went to Oxford. But if my authentic self is just much more informal, right? So I just use like my daughters teach me a lot of it. Like, so I just prefer to be more, for lack of a better word, hip or more youthful in my dialect on a regular basis. I felt no need to stop just because you're old.
Well, growing up, the people I hung out with, I mean, everybody cussed and you just didn't have any tact when you talked. I was like that for years. And then when I started having grandkids, I just changed all that, It's not me anymore.
Perfect.
That makes sense.
100%. Yeah. I love what you said there. It's not me anymore. That's the key piece. That knowing who you are is perfect. So keep building on that.
And it took me 10 years after my splitting up with my first wife to figure out who I was again.
So I can understand that.
You lose yourself sometimes when especially when you're in a bad relationship, you totally lose who you are. I forgot the things that I loved. The only thing I got to love was alcohol and drugs, and thank God I'm away from all that mess. meeting my wife that I have now. I mean, I have a great daughter with Paige, her sister, and somebody that backs me every way. She's all the way with this, and I want to learn. I mean, I know I've got a long way to go, but I've come a long way too. So when I have an honest, open conversation with someone like you, it's going to tell me like it is. I take something away from that. I'm not going to cower in the corner and cry because somebody, you didn't hurt my feelings by any means, but some people, they would take it that way. Now, if you're going to be successful, you got to take the good and the bad, because you're not always going to get praised. You're not always going to get praised.
Yep. Well, you can't grow from praise.
Thank you. Exactly.
You cannot grow from praise.
My favorite boss that I ever had, he would tell me like it was, straight, just to the point, never held anything back. But I tell you what, I got to be a lot better employee and also moved up because I had somebody to tell me like it is.
Good for you, man. Good
So
for you.
I can appreciate how you handle things. I think people could benefit from that. Definitely.
There's a difference between being an asshole and being direct and honest, right? I don't call people names ever, right? I don't attack their character, right? I just am very blunt about behaviors and that I see, very blunt about behaviors I see. And that's hard because people are so attached themselves to the behaviors. And so if I say you're doing something that's inappropriate and not getting where you want to go, is not being received well, people struggle with that, right? Yeah, I'm just blunt and direct.
You should be a life coach.
I've been told this. Yeah, I've been told this.
You should do it, man.
I'll do it. I'll do it through through what I'm doing now, like doing things like this and people that work for me. And I do lots of stuff on video on LinkedIn and stuff like that. So I'll do it that way. But I don't. Yeah, I'm in the like we're older. I'm in the last third of my life. I'm on a path. I'm gonna stay on this path and help where I can, but I'm not starting all over to be a life coach. There's a lot of good ones out there already.
There are, but there's also those that just seems like they're there to pat you on the back and say, "Oh, you're so wonderful." But you need those that are gonna be a little more brash, So
it's a shame. It's a shame that truth is considered brash. That's the problem. It's a shame the truth is considered brash. That's where we are at a problem today, right? How is it all of a sudden the truth is considered brash?
I don't know.
Yeah, because it makes people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, but that's the only way you're going to grow is being uncomfortable.
There you go. There's your quote right there, Kyle Yates. The only way you're going to grow is by being uncomfortable. Yeah. I have the saying that failure marks the boundaries of your competence. So if you're not failing, you're playing too close to what you're good at, which means you're not growing. So in order to, and therefore you're never going to get any better. But if you start failing, that's saying, "Ooh, I'm getting close to my competencies," right? And now I'm getting to the incompetent zone. And that's good because if you fail there, then you learn and you get a little better, and then you don't fail there. And guess what? Your circle's bigger. See that? So now your boundaries of competencies have moved out. So don't stay in the area of competency, push out beyond your competencies, fail. That's uncomfortable is my point. But then through that discomfort, you actually get comfortable. And now your acreage is even bigger. So go further out and get uncomfortable again and keep growing your acreage. Because most people's acreage is like that. Because then they stay right in the middle. Like, don't touch the edges. That hurts. That's uncomfortable. That's a fool's errand. You're never going to get what you want out of life doing that, ever.
When I first started doing this, I always said, get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yep.
The only way things are going to go.
Yeah.
Like you said, if you get into that point where you think everything's just perfect, you're not going to grow.
Nope. Not at all.
Well, and you have a YouTube channel too, right? What's the name of it?
Keenan.
Just Keenan?
Yeah, just Keenan.
Just Keenan. That's good enough. It's directed to the point.
It covers me and my whole, and more for my company, but yes, it's called Keenan. Yep.
Okay. Well, I'm going to put all those links up in the description so people can just go straight to it. And Keenan, I thank you for your time, man. This has been eye-opening for me. I'm looking at things a lot differently.
Well, thank you. I'm glad it was helpful. I hope it achieved your objective.
Definitely did. I hope somebody out there is going to get benefit from this.
Me too.
So,
Me too.
and I hope maybe we can get together again in the future.
Let me know. Be my pleasure.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone out there. If you are new to the channel, I hope you would subscribe and please come back. For all of you out there who are regular, it's because of you that this is going on like it is, and I get people like Keenan on. So thank you for that. Until the next one, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network